Oh,
I hadn't thought about saying that, okay.
but anything that you would like. Go ahead whenever you're ready.
Okay.
Okay.
It's wonderful to remember that you are celebrating your 100th anniversary of Baptist work in Israel. Of course, it was Palestine then, but the Lord has blessed you and succored you and increased and rewarded you for your faithfulness, and I congratulate you. And wish I could be there with you to celebrate your 100th anniversary.
Okay.
Is that all right?
That's excellent.
Okay.
Okay, now's the time for history. Start with what the circumstances that brought you there,
Okay.
and then...
well, I shouldn't go back to my call or anything like that.
Maybe only one sentence.
Okay.
I was, for instance, God called me to mission service when I was whatever age,
Mm-hmm.
and then how the call to Israel or to Palestine. So whenever you're ready, go right ahead.
When I was just 10 years old, the Lord spoke to me and told me He wanted me to be a foreign missionary, but I didn't know where. And while I was at Baylor, also with Henry Haygood, we both felt called to missions at an early age. And a person from the Middle East came and spoke at chapel at Baylor University and presented the need of the Arab world. And we both felt that God was calling us, that was where we should go. And after we graduated from seminary, of course, we applied to the Foreign Mission Board, and we were appointed to go to the Arab world, probably to be located in Damascus, Syria. And of course, we never lived there, but visited there many times. And the war was on, and we went out at the close of the war. Well, VE Day came while we were on the ship. We went on a troop ship, and we were let off in Port Said, Egypt. And from there, we went by train to Cairo, and then from Cairo to Jerusalem by train. We had a small boy at that time, Jimmy, our son. And so our 8-month-old Jimmy and Henry Haygood and I arrived in Jerusalem on June the 1st, 1945. And we were met at the train by missionary Kate Ellen Groover. We spent the time of that summer in language school for the summer session in Jerusalem. And then our assignment, where the board had asked if we would go, was to Nazareth. So we went to Nazareth, and we were welcomed wholeheartedly by the people there because they wanted leadership. They had no pastor at the time. And we were there in Israel just 7 months. We arrived June the 1st, and on January the 4th, 1956, Henry passed away. He is buried in a cemetery, the Protestant cemetery for foreigners, by the Sea of Galilee and Tiberias. And everyone seemed to think that I would leave, but God had called me before I even knew Henry. So when I was 10 years old, as I mentioned, so I knew I must stay. And things were in turmoil in Palestine at that time, as you all know, in 1946. And so I started taking in babies whose mothers had died, some had been abandoned, and for different reasons. And Kate Ellen Groover left Jerusalem and came to live with me, and so we together started this baby home.
Mm-hmm.
Wait a minute.
That's okay. Just pause as much as you need to.
We had 17 was the maximum number that we had. They were all Arab children. One had a Jewish mother.
Take your time. That's okay. Take your time.
It was a happy time, and I felt fulfilled. I didn't have time with all of those little ones to grieve.
Mm-hmm.
And the Lord blessed. And the people there in Nazareth, we worked in the church also. I was able to play the organ for the church services. And I can say that the Baptists in Nazareth surrounded me with their love and prayers, and I will never be able to forget that. And I want to thank you for what it meant to me at that time. Then the Lord had a plan. You know, our Lord has a plan for each of our lives, and we just follow Him, and He will lead us where He wants us to go. Finley Graham from Scotland had been in the British Royal Air Force and for nearly 6 years during the entire time of the war. And most of that time, he was in the Middle East. He was stationed down in Sharjah in the Gulf, and then he was stationed in Palestine and Jordan. And during that time, he felt greatly moved that the Lord was calling him to return as a missionary. And so he did. At the end of the war, he returned to Palestine. Well, the Lord brought us together, and in September of 1947, we married in the Baptist church there in Nazareth. Then just before I had met Finley, we had received word from the board not to take any more children, that their policy now was to close all orphanages around the world, and we needed to keep the children we had for responsibility, but not take any more. So I knew that we would not be getting more children, and Finley did not feel called to do orphanage work. He wanted to be in direct evangelism. Elizabeth Lee came to work with Kate Ellen, and so I knew the children, when I left, would be in good hands. And then we had local young women there in Nazareth who helped us also in the baby home. And so in March of 1948, we moved to Jordan. Our board in the States, Mission Board, asked Finley to, of course, we could be working there in Jordan, but periodically, as often as he felt he could, to go up to Beirut to help, encourage, and strengthen the little group there. They were a local group. No missionaries had ever lived or worked with them, but the work there had started by a Lebanese who had come to the States and was led to the Lord and came back and started the work. And there was this small group of about 20, as I remember, who met periodically for Bible study and prayer, and but they wanted a missionary to lead them. And so I went with Finley several times as he would go from Jordan to Beirut. And then he went one time most of the time really, by himself. And he came back from one of those visits, and he said, Julia, the people in Beirut are so insistent that we come to them. They said because Lebanon has complete religious freedom, from there we can reach out to all of the Arab world, and you'll have a wider ministry than being there in a village in Jordan. And I said, oh, well, we'll pray about it, but I'm sure we won't go. But as we prayed about it, one day we felt that it was like a physical force picking us up and taking us to Lebanon. So we said, all right, we'll go. And the leader of the work there at that time was a shoemaker by the name of Salim Sharif. So we went in our Jeep, which we had at that time because of the roads of Jordan. And we went, first of all, we got there in the afternoon to his shoemaker's shop. And he said, oh, I'm so glad you got here in time. So Joseph, that was his wife, can take you to see the place you're going to rent. And we said, what? What is this? And he said, I have some work that I promised that I'd finish. You go and see Joseph. So we went to their home, and she said that that small group had covenanted to pray together for 3 days and 3 nights that God would send us to them. And it was at the end of that 3rd day that we felt this force pulling us to Beirut. So you can imagine, as a consequence, we moved to Beirut. We rented the place and arranged for it because we didn't have the money to rent it. And Finley sent a cable to our mission board and explained the situation with a covering letter. And they said, of course, if we felt God was leading us there, that they'd always wanted missionaries to go there. And so in November of 48, we moved to Lebanon.
And how many years did you stay in Lebanon?
And we stayed in Lebanon, and the Lord led us to buy property to start a school, Beirut Baptist School, and then several years later, as the work grew, Finley felt led to start a seminary. First, the young men who came just were in our home. He'd teach them in the morning, and they'd have lunch with us and then go back to their places of service. And then the work grew and the churches grew, and the Lord blessed. And then in 1978, our mission board asked Finley to be the area director for all of the Baptist work in North Africa and the Middle East. And so we moved to the island of Cyprus in 78. Now we had moved to Lebanon in 48. So we'd spent a lifetime there, and we had other children born in Lebanon, and of course Jimmy was 4 years old by the time we moved to Lebanon. And we had other children, and all 5 of our children, Jimmy and the 4 girls, graduated from high school in Beirut. And so we were free to move to Cyprus. And the wonderful thing was, we were free to travel from Cyprus to Israel, which had been impossible to travel from Lebanon to Israel. And so Ed finished work as area director. Several times a year, we would go back to Israel as he visited all of the different countries that we had Baptist work at that time. And that was a wonderful time of renewing fellowships, seeing how the Lord had blessed in Israel and how the work had grown, and the few that were still there, we were able to renew fellowship with them and see all of the new preaching points and the churches and how the Lord had blessed in Israel. So it was wonderful that we were able to do that. And so that was in 78. Then that went on as we traveled about to all of the mission work. In 86, in 86, I became 70, and so we had to retire. And so we had all of that time to renew fellowship in Israel. It had come around, and the Lord has blessed greatly. All right.
Excellent.
Now, is that okay?
That is absolutely excellent. Let me clear my throat for just a moment.
Okay.
Goodness. I'm sorry to Botter that those coughs are coming off on the tape. Botter, you can edit them out. Goodness gracious.
We want a drink.
Yes. Do you mind? Here, no, just point. I'll do it.
Okay. Well, in the kitchen there, you get a glass on the right hand side. There are glasses.
Okay.
You just get one and
Thank you.
and get some water. On the right hand side, you see glasses.
Thank you, thank you. I fear that in my older years I've developed allergies, and sometimes it just constricts the throat. Okay. All right, so this next portion will just be you saying goodbye to the people,
okay.
And however you would like to conclude. Go ahead whenever you're ready.
May the Lord bless you richly as you observe this 100th anniversary. Wish I could be there with you. And it is wonderful to see how the Lord will bless His faithful servants. And if you follow Him, as you have found out, He will lead and He will bless and He will multiply your efforts to His honor and glory.